So this is a demonstration on how to take your final composition into a painting. So this is a acrylic painting on a illustration board. Um, Maybe Bristol board works as well. Um, so we have white acrylic, black acrylic. I have my white paint pen. I have a series of black microns and markers, and then some, basic paintbrushes. So here is the printout. So you're going to want to do your painting at scale. So make sure that you're printing your image as large as possible. It's easier to paint. And then you're going to want to use the actual image to tape off on your board so that everything is exactly the same size. Make sure you maintain at least like a 1 or 2 inch border. So here is the piece, the actual black and white copy. The copy doesn't have to be great, so you don't have to get like a really nice photo glossy image. You can just do a basic printout. So let's start this. So at the back of this, you're going to want to put graphite, maybe a 2B, cover the entire back, flip it, and secure it onto your composition. I even put these marks right here and here that help me line that piece up every time. So that can be very helpful because you're going to use this piece over and over again through this process for transferring the shapes and the drawing. So you don't have to free draw this onto the board. So be sure to put those registration marks. They can really help you, okay? Let's start this. So I'm using my ruler for straight edges, and at this point I'm only transferring my linear structure. And I'm drawing it now a little bit heavier onto the backboard. I have not gessoed this board yet. I wanted to put kind of a strong, heavy graphite down first, and then I'm going to gesso this, or a white acrylic would work as well. And it's going to put a nice layer down for your paint, but this pencil will show through. So that's why I'm retracing my work that was very lightly transferred from the photocopy, okay? So here's the piece, a little bit out of focus, but I've already primed over the graphite and it's lightened it, but I can still see it. And I'm starting to just fill in my grays, basically. And this first layer is going to be the worst layer. It's going to be the sloppiest. Just kind of get your basic values down, and then you can start cleaning up your edges. So I have my basic values down, taping off my shapes, and then I'm really putting a nice opaque color over it now. So I'm doing my whites, doing my grays, and then you need to let this dry. The faster you try to take the tape off, you'll see in this, there's been, I took it off too quick, and you'll see some serious problems with the edge. Then you're going to want to, let me back this up for a minute. Right there. Okay. Here is just the piece with its basic linear structure. There's no characters, there's no patterning. This is just my background. Okay, and you want to paint this first without any of your main information. You just want to see a full value range, have white areas, have grays, maybe a few blacks. This is akin to starting with your 3 strips in strip studies. So you definitely want to start with a really well-balanced composition, okay? So here I've sort of reduced this to my basic information. Then I'm going to place my image back on top, and I'm going to trace around that image. And here you can see that pencil mark where I only traced where the main character is going to go. Then I'm going to mass in that character, and you might have more than one, but just trace the silhouette of your information. And it's really important that your silhouette be accurate. I'm not interested in any of the interior information right now. I just want to block her in, and I'm blocking her in with a white. so that I can kind of start fresh with her figure. So let's start that. So here I am blocking that shape in, and you're gonna work from the general to the specific, just like we always do. You're gonna work with the largest shapes, and then you're gonna break those shapes down, over time. So there's Amelia, and then I'm starting here to layer some information. And what's important about this is that you guys want to put the color or the value down in the first layers that occupy that part of the image that is very small. So in this image that I'm looking at, these little lines are tiny, and then the white is large. So it's smarter to put the dark value down first and paint around with the larger masses. So if you have tiny lines, don't try to paint tiny lines. Paint the spaces around those tiny lines, leaving the value underneath showing through. It's easier. You can always try to paint big shapes. Don't try to paint small shapes. Try to paint out small shapes. So there I'm sort of working that propeller motif I created. And when I have a value in my hand, I distribute it. I look for that value everywhere. Okay, let me back that up for a minute. So right here, okay. All right, so right here you can see I've traced the image on top of the whites, because now I can see my pencil marks, and I'm still using that first photocopy that I put the graphite on the back. I essentially made my photocopy a carbon copy, okay? And then I lined up my hash marks, so everything lines up exactly where it should. That's why we created those registration marks. And then I retraced just the basic information. Don't trace every shape. Just trace your big markers on the drawing. And then now I'm putting my midtones in. I'm not going right to my darks. I already have my lights down, so we're going to leave those. And then I'm going to my mids, and then I'm going to do my darks after that, okay? So here I'm sort of looking for any value that's sometimes a black, and then I'll put a black over this, or it's just my midtones. So I'm trying to establish a basic value pattern with this one value right now. So as you work on this kind of painting, and this is how murals are created too, you need to work from the general to the specific. Let me stop this here. And this, I've jumped forward a little because this was such a long process. After I did my midtones, I got out my marker right here, my white pen, and a pencil. And I am drawing on top of the paint. You might really like this. It's a great way of incorporating drawing and painting together. So I'm using my blacks and I'm looking for my black patterns with my marker, and then I'm actually like pulling that value out with my pencil. So if you watch right there, I'll get my pencil out after and sort of gradate that black into the image. So working from marker to pencil is a really, really great way to get some nuance. So I'll let this go. Yep, so you can see me working my white pen there for small details. You can use your brush, but there's no reason you can't use a white pen either. So use whatever works for you. I'm back to brush here because I'm working in large areas, so I'm using a large tool. Anytime you're using white over a value, it's going to take several layers. So you'll notice in this demo, yep, I hit those shapes several times to get opacity. It's not gonna have coverage in one, so I spend time to cover and recover. Make sure that the last layer dries before you attempt the second or third layer, or nothing will happen. Okay, over in the right side, I'm starting to deal with that Art Deco pattern I created. So I've laid my tape down, I've cut those shapes because they're really sharp and really straight, and I've revealed the shapes, and then I'm painting in my grays. Once again, let that dry before you remove the paint or it doesn't work. So here you can see I've taped and cut those shapes. Some of these are freehand because they're shorter and I can manage them, and some of them I wanted really straight. So it takes more time to tape, but the results are cleaner. So it's up to you. I do a combination. Okay, I'll let it go. So now I'm going back through and darkening the spaces around those white lines. So this is allowing me to clean up that painting, get the edges nice and straight. Sometimes I use a ruler, sometimes I don't. And I'm really increasing the contrast there. And once again, this is just mine is a Coptic marker, but the regular markers will work too. And then you take your tape off the edge and there you go. You've transferred that, your final composition onto a board in painting. Okay, good luck.